Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site that covers, of course, your Arizona Cardinals. Episode 715, it's our Cardinals-Cowboys reaction show with Seth Cox, my co-host from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. And man, the Cardinals pulled it off. They beat the Dallas Cowboys 27-17. Jacoby Brissett played well. There's a lot going on in Cardinals land right now, Seth, isn't there?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just been a lot of interesting times, and you know, we talked a little bit about it in the group text, but there's, you know, the way that things have unfolded, it's not surprising, but it'll be something to keep an eye on because, you know, as good as yesterday was, it was actually very mediocre in terms of what the Cowboys have done this year, right?
Yeah, and we'll talk about all of that. I mean, we've got to talk about Jacoby Brissett. Okay, so that's the first thing we're leading with. So Jacoby Brissett, his play and the decision moving forward, as Jonathan Gannon announced, told the media that with the short week and for just to clarify everything so that the team had clarity, Jacoby Brissett will start against Seattle regardless of Kyler's health. And then on top of that, that was in the press conference on Arizona Sports 98.7. He told Burns and Gambo that had Kyler been healthy, he was going to go with Brissett anyway. So I think that what he said in the press conference left the door open 100% to be, okay, Kyler's health. He's not healthy yet, and Jacoby Brissett's been playing well, so we can allow Kyler to get to be 100%. This is an interesting tidbit that a healthy Kyler would still have meant, like, even if he gets healthy this week, or even if he were all the way healthy this week, they're riding with Brissett. Before we talk about the play, what do you think about the decision?
You know, it's just one of those decisions that I think, you know, we've talked about this quite a bit. People go off of vibes a lot, right? And so, you know, losing 2 games by 8 points combined was more okay in the vibes aspect than losing 3 games by a combined 5 points, right? So people go, oh, well, you know, they were so much better. And again, it was against better competition in the Colts and the Packers. But, you know, for fans or this podcast that have said that there are no moral victories anymore, that was a lot of moral victories until there was an actual victory last night, right? Like this,
Yes,
that was, you know, one of those situations. So you look at it from that perspective, it's interesting that's, you know, how it's going to go. And you hope that it is the right move. You hope that for the sake of the regime, it's the right move, because as we've talked about, that's the second win in non-Kyler Murray starts under Jonathan Gannon. So that moves them to 2-10 in Gannon's career without Murray, 13-17 with Murray. So they've got still quite a bit of room to go. I mean, another 11. They have to go 11-7 in the next 18 starts to even match that
yes.
bad, you know, Murray number. And so that'll be what's interesting to see is, you know, they're in the thick of the schedule. They're 1-2 in those games that we talked about. And again, it just seems like a lot of it's on vibes, and maybe that's what's important right now, right? Like the vibes are good, the vibes are a little more positive coming after um that you know catastrophic loss to Tennessee. Um, Kyle Odegaard put it the other day. This is a 4-4 team if just they simply don't give the game away to Tennessee.
Right.
And they're in the thick of the playoffs instead. They're the 11 seed or 12 seed in the NFC. Um, they're really, really far behind
In the division. Oh my
the
gosh.
division, and it's going to be super unlikely to see all four teams from one division make the playoffs, especially when you're talking about a team that's again so far behind. Anyways, and the only tiebreaker they have right now are the Cowboys and the Panthers, who both are in front of them. So that's the other hard part. They are 12th in the division, and so those will be things to watch. But right now, the main and they do have a game against the Falcons, who they're technically in front of, even though they're both 3-5. So we'll see how it goes. But the rest of the season, realistically, but the next 5 games, I think it is. 6 games. Sorry, 6 games are really going to tell us what that, and that's if Jacoby's the starter in all 6 games. If they can go 4-2 and they're sitting at 7-7, then it was the right call, right? But if they go 1-5 or God forbid 0-6, then beating a terrible Dallas defense was not the litmus test that needed to be made for a change. And so those are the things you have to now look forward to. Is can they, and it's good that it starts so early, right? Like it's good that it starts immediately against Seattle, one of the teams not only ahead of them but in the division, the first place team in the division. Maybe the best team in the division, although it's really a coin flip at who the best team is. We all know who the worst team is, but who the best team is. And so those are really interesting things to watch, because the next 6 games will define. And again, that's if Jacoby's the guy for all 6 games. This will define the Jonathan Gannon era, because it's either you pulled the right cord, or the ripcord you pulled was the false one, and now you're too close to pull the right one, and it's going to be game over.
For me, the extra thing from Arizona sports, I don't know why Gannon would say that, whether or not it's true. Because as much as we know about Gannon not wanting to give away stuff, that question, he could have simply said, if Kyler's healthy, would you I don't know. He's not healthy. I don't know what I would have done there. And it allows, saying right now that you're going to go with Jacoby to start for Seattle, which 100% makes sense when Kyler isn't healthy yet. And now the report comes out that that there was kind of a 4 to 8 week thing. And I know Kyler was trying to get back after the bye. What I thought about Jacoby's play, about Brissett's play thus far, is that the one thing that it allowed the Cardinals to do, and Kyler specifically to do, because every injury that Kyler has had previously that caused him to miss time, he was coming back before 100% because he was in a hurry to get back. He wanted to get back on the field. If we look back to his rookie season, he played the season finale on a sore hamstring. He wasn't 100%, but he wanted they wanted him to play every game. In 2020, at the end of the year, when he had that high ankle sprain during the Rams game, and he came back in. He had no business coming back in, by the way. but people expected it from him. He had the high ankle speed. He came back and was not good, was not 100%. In 2021, when he sprained his ankle, the high ankle sprain again, in the Packers game, he came back early. Like, he came back and played. He wasn't 100%. So the idea that, it turned out he wasn't ready this past week. I thought that Brissett's play, it gave the Cardinals the luxury that while he's playing well, while Brissett is running the offense well, to afford Murray the opportunity to get fully healthy. And so the decision on a short week to give clarity to the team rather than to split the reps and do kind of the play, the cat and mouse that he likes to do, it made 100% sense to say Kyler's and all the references to Kyler's health and his health bucket, it allows him to heal. It made sense to go with Jacoby Brissett, and simply because, Kyler's not healthy. We want to give the team clarity. The offense has been running well, so why change things? To add the information that even if Kyler were healthy, that he was ready to go to Brissett, that was fuel to a fire you didn't need to add. Now, and on top of that, he says that today. What happens on Sunday if Brissett looks like Colt McCoy versus the Panthers? And then you have to walk things back rather than saying Jacoby's playing well, Kyler's not 100% healthy. Okay, and if Jacoby goes and lays an egg in Seattle, you didn't come out and say, I was ready to go to Brissett. Now you're playing quarterback yo-yo. Then it's just, is Kyler healthy enough to play now? Okay, he comes back in and takes over against San Francisco if he's able to. So I understand the decision. I don't know why he said what he said on Arizona Sports, because I think that just, for all the controversy, for all the Murray talk, I think that doesn't help the situation. And for someone who tries to keep things as close to the vest as Gannon does, I think that was unnecessary. The decision for Brissett moving forward, well, for at least for this week, perfect. That made sense. And honestly, if Kyler was going to come back less than 100%, I wouldn't want to see it against Seattle, who is so tough against him. So, but as for the game, what did you think about what we saw from Brissett? Because now it's 3 games in a row, 2 touchdown passes. He had a rushing touchdown, and we saw smooth operations. We saw down the field throws. There was nothing not to like. Almost. There was almost nothing not to like.
Yeah, it was it was an interesting game because you look at it and he didn't complete anything over 20 yards in this one. So one of the keys of the game for Dallas was obviously to keep things in front. But one of the things that they did a terrible job with all game was tackling, right? Like they literally,
there were guys had wide open guys in front of them, and then the Michael Wilson play. Like, Brissett made some really great throws, but we have seen that the Dallas defense is so bad right now.
Right, and you look at it, it's interesting to see the last 3 games, because if you look at it, people are going to look at it and go, oh, he's been phenomenal in all 3 games, and it's like it's tough to say that when that was, and this is statistically speaking, that was the second best performance by the Dallas defense all season. So like that putrid defensive performance was the second best defensive performance they've had all season, or sorry, third best defensive performance they've had all season. I mean, in 9 games, like that's, and then you look at it, that was the most sacks by the Dallas defense all season. I still, like with Kyler, I don't blame the quarterback for those issues. I blame the play calling, and you can look at it in the game. They once again had absolutely no second half rhythm after the touchdown, right? Like they go down, they score, and then after that, it's please don't beat us, right? Like they kicked the field goal in the third quarter, and they went 3 and out, 5 and out, and then they finally got a little bit of yardage, and again, not on Brissett. This was like what is this offense in the second half? And it was especially disconcerting because they came out after halftime, right, and scored that touchdown immediately. 3 plays, 74 yards. They get the big play, as you mentioned, to Michael Wilson, for 50 yards. Then they get the big run to Zonovan Knight for 17 yards. And it's like, 67 yards in 2 plays. Like that's a great start to things. And you just kind of sit there and go, okay, so then what happened the rest of the game? And that's what the concern is. And again, not a Brissett thing. More of a, what is this offense thing? Like, where was continuing to push the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr.? Why did he only get 1 target in the second half? I mean, 6 catches on, I think it was 8 or 9 targets in the first half, one target, 1 catch in the second half. Like, I guess I just don't understand what the philosophy is, especially when something was working so easily, right?
So, like, if you look at the fourth quarter was no different than New Orleans, than Carolina, San Francisco, and Tennessee. The only thing that was different was they didn't have the brain farts against Tennessee, right? So it went punt, turnover on downs, and the difference was they had the lead, and interestingly enough, we can also, this is what happened again if we remember in 2023. The Cardinals beat the Cowboys in part because the Cowboys coaches were morons. If Brian Schottenheimer, in both of those times they went for it, if they just kicked the field goal, it's a 4-point game in the fourth quarter when they scored that touchdown. It would have been 27-23, and then how they approached things would have been much different. And granted, the Cardinals did make the plays, but we're still talking. So yeah, if we're looking at Brissett's performance, the volume still says he's doing a good job. It does. The numbers don't lie. He's being very efficient when you look at the big picture. The passing game looks better. And so you can't say Jacoby's playing poorly, but if you look at the team, between Kyler and Jacoby, the fourth quarter's been the same because the coaches are doing the same thing. Now, what I do love about, and this is the thing personally, and I put this out on X and got some heat from some people, I still believe in Kyler Murray, apples to apples. I want to see Kyler behind the same offensive line with Will Hernandez playing a full game, and with Petzing calling the same type of plays, having the same offensive philosophy that he's had in the 3 games with Brissett, because we know that the run game philosophy has been different. Rather than forcing the run game early, they're using the run game sporadically, and then they're using it at the end of games because they don't have James Conner and Trey Benson to lean on. That's been Petzing's crutch the whole time, is like when they need something, they lean on Conner, and that wasn't good this year. So I personally, I'd be more comfortable with saying Brissett moving forward, if I could see Kyler one time behind, like, because if we look at the Tennessee game, the first half when Will Hernandez was in the game, they scored 3 touchdowns in 4 drives. And things fell apart after he came out. And so it seems odd that going from Isaiah Adams to Will Hernandez was really the difference. But look at the offense. Look at the offense overall since Will Hernandez got back. It's now been 16 quarters, 14 of which he's been in the game. The 14 quarters he's been in the game, you've had 12 very good offensive quarters. You've had 2, and then the 2 that he was not in the game against Tennessee was disastrous. It was disastrous. And so I'd like to see that. That said, Jacoby's playing very well. I do have one major concern, one major worry, and that is just the number of hits. And that's one of the things that people love is that he's staying in the pocket, he's taking those hits. I'm like, Murray might not do that. You're right. But you know what? Is he not making the plays though? Is he getting out and making plays with his legs? Is he making plays on those throws? Or is it really Brissett's strength? The problem is he was sacked another 5 times last night. He took another 11 hits. That makes 35 hits in 3 games that Brissett has taken. And there were some he looked banged up after some of those hits. So I don't know if what he's doing is sustainable for his health. That said, I can't complain about what he's done, but we find themselves the defense playing a little better, and yeah. So, anything else about Brissett specifically before bumping on to the next topic?
No. I think, like you said, it's the right move for the time, and we'll see how it works. And there are, honest concerns that need to be shared. And again, it's not necessarily with Brissett's play. It's how long is the hit sustainable for? Because, like you said, like the 3 games, it's an astonishing amount of hits thus far.
Yes, so many. Coming up next on the Rise of Zero podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move a little bit to the rest of the offense, the rest of the play offensively. What are the good things we saw? That's coming next on Rise of Red. We're back on the Rise of Red podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the way. The Cardinals beat the Dallas Cowboys 27-17. The offense looked much better. They had 340 yards. They outgained the Cowboys. They went 7 for 13 on 3rd down. Jacoby Brissett had 261 passing yards. They ran for 119 yards. There were things to like. I mean, the other things you like, you obviously have to like the play of Marvin Harrison in the first half. And like, did it seem like after the scathing criticism from Marvin Harrison Sr. On that story by Josh Weinfuss over at ESPN, to then suddenly, now we're gonna feed Harrison, we're gonna feed him, and he had, what was it? I think it was 2 targets. Maybe it was just a 1 target in the second half. No, it was 2 targets because one went incomplete. So he had 2 targets in the second half. He went 6 catches and 8 targets in the first half. And what I loved was the way he was playing. And what have we been saying? You got to feed receivers like that so they keep the intensity up. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw a receiver that looked like he was feeling himself. Like, that's what we want to see. The touchdown when he put Deron Bland on. Oh my gosh, that move at the goal line, the easiest touchdown you could have ever seen. Sent Deron Bland to the ground, just fumbling his ankles, and then CeeDee Lamb on the sideline. You could see it in CeeDee Lamb's eyes. The reaction to that was, wow. It was both like, that was cool, and oh my gosh, that was on my teammate. But I loved the focus on Harrison early, but like you said, like, why did they not go back to him in the second half?
Yeah, and it's the continued conundrum that we've had with this offensive game plan. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind going to Trey McBride. I don't mind the big play to Michael Wilson, but also, I see people say things like, "Oh, the receivers are going to be so much happier with that game, or with him there." It's like there's no difference in what was happening with Trey, right? Like the targets are the targets. The bigger difference is the usage down the field, and something we've talked about, and these guys getting chances to compete down the field more often, and not running now screens and things like that to the detriment of the series. And more than that, to me, it's looking at what happened with Marv in the first half, and just, again, why is this not a consistent thought?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe you and I are crazy. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, we see what other teams do with their big time receivers. They feed them the ball. What is Joe Flacco doing in Cincinnati? He's like, Jamar Chase. Like in Minnesota, get the ball to Justin Jefferson. Like when you've got the receiver, like Seattle, Jackson Smith and Jigba, like they're giving him the ball all the time. So yeah, I another thing that was really positive was the use of the run game and the efficiency. Now, granted, Dallas not good defensively, but in the absence of a James Conner and Trey Benson, the run game complemented the passing game perfectly. And to see Amari DeMarcado have himself a really nice game. He ended up with 14 carries for 79 yards. He had 3 or 4 really nice runs. It was good to see him make plays, and the fact that they could run the ball in the second half a little bit to make some plays. And to get 119 yards without Kyler Murray as your best runner, I thought that was really nice as well. It was great to see Michael Wilson get involved, like the 50-yard play again. But who's to say that wouldn't have happened with Kyler? Because that Dallas secondary is something else. But you got contributions from lots of people. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players catching passes. Now, here's the thing with when Kyler was playing, that was never a problem there. He regularly had 7, 8, 9 different players catching passes. It's just we weren't getting the volume from guys we wanted. And so 19 of Jacoby Brissett's targets of his passing attempts went to Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. That's about right. We're looking at about 2/3 of the targets, anywhere between 50% to 2/3 of the targets we believe should be going in those two players' direction. And I think that's kind of why it worked. Elijah Higgins, if you listen to me on my prop, I'm doing the over 1.5 catches for Elijah Higgins. You cashed that as he got 3 catches in the first half. But yeah, lots of good. That's the major concern is what Jacoby's doing, the hits he's taken, is that sustainable, especially when we come up against a defense like Seattle? Anything of note offensively you'd like to point out that was positive?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at, and I know people will be like, well, 6 sacks, that was a lot. I wasn't overly concerned with the pass blocking. Beacham had a rough night, but again, you're asking him to play tight end and come in those situations where it's obvious that, I mean, I literally was sitting there, as you know, screaming, like, what are we doing? Like,
Well,
everybody,
he had a couple of really bad whiffs, man.
he did, but like, again, we're putting a guy in a position that he's never blocked from before, right? Because he's playing tight end as an extra guy, and you're running play action, and they don't respect the play action, and that's something that I tweeted out a couple times, right? Like, I'm like, guys, they don't respect your play action. Like, you have to throw the ball. I get it. Like, you want to run play action and stuff like that, but I think 4 of the sacks came on play action plays, and it's not on anybody, right? I don't blame the line. I don't blame the quarterback. Like, and I think they put 3 of the 5 sacks on Jacoby, which is I would disagree with, but it's also, it's tough. And so those are, that's how I would look at it.
Coming up next on the Rise of Sea Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. One of my favorite things to happen out of this game, Walter Nolen. Let's talk about the first round pick and his NFL debut. That's coming up next on Rise of Sea Red. We're back on the Rise of Sea Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Walter Nolen. I said for months, Walter Nolen's rookie year is cooked because he didn't get any training camp. He's going to miss half the season. He's not going to make much of an impact. Okay. All right. I'll take that L. My goodness.
But I don't even know.
Walter Nolen in one game, like in his second snap, like he was impactful immediately. That was impressive. That was one of the biggest things. And if this is more than just a flash of his first game, the Cardinals defense got a big boost.
Well, and that's just it. We talked about how in those 3 games the defense let them down so much, right? And to see them come out, especially against an offense that had played so well at home, and they'd play well on the road too. I don't want to take anything away but like, this was a juggernaut offense at home, right? You and I talked about it on the pod.
44 in their 3 previous home games.
And so for the Cardinals to hold them to their second lowest point total of the season at home, obviously, is a huge deal. Their total yards was the 3rd lowest of the season. And those, that made a difference. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's just they didn't have the bodies in some of those games, right? We talked about the Darius Robinson absence. And again, it wasn't like he was great, but he's just a rotational guy then, right? Like, they have another body. Walter Nolen had a great game. He only had to play 37 snaps. Like, those are the things that we talk about, and you look at 51 snaps between Nolen and Darius Robinson. And the biggest thing in that is not that they played, and by the way, Nolen played excellent. Not that they played outstanding, but what it did was they took up snaps from guys that
PJ Mustipher got 6 snaps of the game.
Yeah, PJ Mustipher.
He was on the field instead of PJ Mustipher and Bilal Nichols, who was inactive.
Right, and so and the reason that's important is because what happened late in the game? Calais Campbell gets 2 sacks, right? And you and I have talked about this. Calais is playing the exact same amount of snaps basically every game, percentage-wise, things of that nature. Basically every game. They use him in pass rush situations. By the way, in 3 of the 5 losses, he played 10 or more run defense snaps. In the other 5 games on the season, he's played less than 10 defensive running snaps. Like, he's here to be an interior pass rusher. And so when teams are like, oh, we got Calais on the field, let's run the ball. And again, not Calais's fault, but like, you're able to kind of take advantage of, 1, the age, 2, that lateral mobility. It's like, you saw the explosiveness up the field, right? But it's the lateral mobility that's not as elite as it once was. And you saw that he missed a tackle in the backfield, right, on Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams put a great move on him and gained like 10 yards. And so those are the little things And so then on top of that, then Walter Nolen playing, almost elite was just
37 snaps, 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit and a sack, and then the pass breakup, the tipped pass. That was in one game nearly as much production as Darius Robinson had for his entire rookie season.
right.
That's and with the Robinson situation is different, but it was great to see one that maybe his rookie year isn't wasted, because if he can do that in one game, that will be fun to see late in the year once he gets a few, some actual snaps under his belt and some experience. So that'll be fun to see moving forward. So that I was shocked. I was amazed. And even on the plays where he didn't make plays, you still saw him. Like he jumped off the film. Like he jumped off the TV, even on the plays where he didn't make a play. Like he was a problem, which was really cool to see.
Exactly.
And with that, coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk Web. Let's wrap this up. We'll talk about the rest of the defense. Let's talk what we liked defensively from the rest of the players. It's coming up next on Rise of Red. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the web. Overall, you have to like what the Cardinals did defensively against that juggernaut of an offense. So they got the takeaways, they got sacks. Josh Sweat now up to 7 sacks in the season in 8 games. That contract looks great. He had 2. Not only that, but he was productive in other. He had 2 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. Calais had the 2 sacks. I was disappointing because he got Garrett Williams back in the lineup, and so you're like, finally, the secondary where you get Max and Garrett and Will Johnson all together, and it lasted a half because Melton got a concussion and had to leave the game for the second half, and so you got Denzel Burke, but Denzel Burke made plays. He had the pick at the end of the game. He broke up that 4th down pass to CeeDee Lamb. You had Will Johnson doing good things. Garrett Williams had a decent game back. It wasn't perfect, but you could tell his presence was noticed. Walter Nolen doing his thing. Cody Simon filling in for Mac Wilson at the end of the game and getting the forced fumble. There was a show out of their young guys and their newcomers.
I was going to say
their newcomers in general.
Right, the investments, right? Like the young guys. Simon, Burke, Nolen, Johnson, the investments, Sweat, Akeem Davis-Gaither played probably his best game of the season. Those things all made a difference in this game. And then you have, like you said, the return of Garrett Williams, who we've joked, but is their most, experienced and veteran presence in the secondary. So that was helpful. The biggest thing now is how they continue to kind of fix the ails of consistency in the pass rush. It wasn't bad by any means, right? But 3 of those sacks, or was it 2? I can't remember now, but came in, desperation time, which was great to see. You never want to take stats away, just like you won't say, the Denzel Burke interception was it was what it was, but you want to see more consistency from the pass rush. That was one of the things I thought. And then again, the run defense, I don't know if it was because they got up and weren't expecting to see much in terms of rushing the ball from Dallas, but 123 yards rush. And again, Javonte Williams is really good. He had a nice game. Other than the fumble was a big deal. The fumble was a big deal, but yeah, he ran the ball well, and really it came down to the defense made the plays it needed to. Those 2 4th down stops were huge, but we might be having a different conversation if Brian Schottenheimer doesn't go for it on both those 4th downs. Well, and we could be having a different. I mean, we talked about it early, and again, there's nothing to take away from what the Cardinals did. They won that game, but 3 drops on the first drive. Right? Think about that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
3 drops on the first drive from the Dallas Cowboys, 2 fumbles by reliable guys in Jake Ferguson and Javonte Williams on kind of useless, meaningless, like fighting for extra yardage instead of just getting down. Like all of that stuff added up to the Cardinals having opportunities, but not having to worry as much as they have in the past, and those things made a difference. The biggest takeaway from this game to me is the rush offense and defense. Like that has to get better, because even with wins, like say they go, like you can't not be able to run the ball and give up so much in the running game and expect to win. And then obviously we can have a conversation about the special teams. It was not great. But at the same time, too, the fact that 7 of the 17 points was from special teams does make you feel even better about the defensive performance, right?
100%. And, especially against that team. So while there were things that you didn't love, the context of what they did against the Cowboys was important because Dak Prescott hadn't been sacked hardly at all. They got to him 5 times. They hadn't been turning the ball over. The Cardinals took the ball away 3 times. But at the end of the day, the Cowboys are also kind of in the same boat as the Cardinals. They're not a good team. They're not a good team. And so they're kind of a mess right now. And so, but kudos to making the plays when they needed to see their investments performing, to see Walter Nolen break out in his debut. I'll take a win. I was shocked by it. And, as much as I would rather see Kyler Murray doing this, we can't hate that Jacoby's doing it.
You just have to be
raises
excited.
questions. It raises questions about the future, but especially because do we really think that I don't believe that what Brissett is doing is sustainable, but maybe it is. I don't know.
That's a conversation for later on once we have a little bit bigger of a sample size, because the production each game has gone down slightly, not much, but slightly, and again the hits are absurd at this point. 13 sacks, 35 quarterback hits, like
so many.
That's in 3 games. That's what's concerning, right?
Yeah, that's the main thing. Well, with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Series podcast, Best Hour of Cardinals Talk of the Web. We got to talk about, there's controversy, but it's not a dumpster fire. We didn't think the Cardinals had a chance to win that game. The Cowboys gave them that chance. They've now won 8 out of the last 9 against Dallas. They continue to win in Dallas. And next up this week, we've got Seattle, a very, very critically important game. Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. The schedule of our show should go as normal. Seth and I will preview the game later this week. I hope to get Cole Musgrove on to do our opponent show. And with that, that'll wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Here podcast, Best Hour of Cardinals Talk of the Web. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening, as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, Rise up, see red.